So just make sure that we are good. Hey, hey, great to see you guys today. I am just going to actually go over and find a song from the Peaceful Inner Warriors United Mad Hatter's Music compilation. And I'm going to choose the song, which is an original by Celia Stavry, my apologies, by Celia Stavry. And so let me just get that sharing over on Zoom. Here we go. And we'll go over onto YouTube and see Celia. And while she does her thing, I'm going to do my handstands because that's what I love to do. Battery unplugged. Yes.
I wanna start loving better. I wanna start trusting better. Talk about my dreams and watch them come together. I wanna start doing better. Deep down, I know I was meant for more than this. Feels like I'm going through metamorphosis. To be considered someone who's seen a winner. To be a better me. I wanna start thinking bigger. I wanna start dreaming bigger. Live a little more. Foot not to the floor. I wanna start thinking bigger. Deep down, I know I was meant for more than this. It feels like I'm going through metamorphosis. To be considered someone I've seen a winner. To be a better me. To be a better me.
That is what it is about.
I wanna start.
We are needing to be better us. And we're still early because today is an exciting day where we're going to actually play with the animal messenger. No, I don't have my animal messenger cards, but I wanted to read you today's message from Sunday, March 7th at 10:07. Have faith that God won't send you anything you're incapable of handling. You can decide that the word fear is an acronym for false evidence appearing real, or to see fear as false emotion appearing real, which is why behind me here you've got the high rise of emotional awareness, and also you have Saint Germain here too, and the radio station analogy of you as the beacon that sends out your intentions as the seeds of the apple for which we are the core of the toroidal field that comes from us. And essentially, whatever we put out gets received by whatever you believe is the creator of all of this. And then it gives that back to us, and we get it through people, places, and things, nouns. Now, earlier this month already, Michael Seegers and I did a sermon, an episode on the Rosary, and I'm not Catholic. I did go to a Catholic school, though, because I liked the kilts, and I needed a change because I didn't feel safe and supported in the community that I was in where I was before I switched. And so I wanted to say to you, I want this to be a space like that for you. I want this to be like Oprah's Sunday Super Soul series, except other people actually join in with me. And I know that I say it starts at 10:10, so I'm curious to see if anyone will jump on then. But in the meantime, we're going to do a little card pull from the Starseed Oracle for us all. And it's called Earthed, Learning How to Be Human in the World but Not of It, which means to be the one who is observing ourselves, observing, being observed, observing, and the multidimensionality of all that is truly in this moment. There is also the need to understand that most of us are empathic starseeds that perceive other people's emotions before they even understand them, and our understanding of them before they even understand themselves really creeps them out oftentimes. So we can't take it personally, but we have to understand energetic sovereignty. And I've been really dedicating a lot of energy into sovereignty, which I say at 10:10, as I began my life in 1987 on the 10th day of the 10th month. And I've been learning about the cosmic clock and why that is so important. And it's also to say that I'm not for everyone. So there will be people who come to this just to judge me. And to you I say, hey, hate me, love me, leave me, whatever. I'm doing my thing. Are you? Because if you're watching me birthing creations, I am birthing a creation in the tapestry of life. I am singing my song, inviting you to sing yours. And I'm saying, if you don't like me, why are you here? Why are you judging me other than that you hope that someone could actually be good? Because you hope for that within your own self. And the energy that came up with the energy attachment is connected to an entity that I wanted to actually read to you. Oh my goodness. Truly, guys. I left it all on my desk because I just moved over here last minute. But I have today, of course, Julia Cameron's course in discovering and recovering your creative self. And today we're actually talking about possibility. So this is going to be very significant and connected. And what is interesting is that it starts with rabbit holes, conspiracy theories, and pure source. And so I wanted to ask you, what glass ceiling will you choose? Because there are greater agendas at play than what we can perceive. And it was basically broken down in terms of a multi-layering effect of the grid system in a video by Elizabeth April on YouTube that my friend Chantal Matheson sent me, so thank you for that. And it was called VAX, VAXX, and C square or star vid, Truth Bomb. So it's her perspective, and she works with the Galactic Council of Light. And basically what she talks about is that we needed a global crisis to force change collectively that leads us to unification. And there are current systems within the political, economic, media, and education spheres that needed to collapse in order for the new to be reborn, which is symbolic or reflective of the mythic creature, the phoenix, because the phoenix basically builds up a comfortable nest and then uses the strength and force of its own wings to then ignite the nest onto fire, which then consumes it, the creator of both the fire and the nest, and then resurrects itself in the ashes of that which was, in order to be who it became by actually going through the metamorphosis that the caterpillar goes through in becoming the butterfly, who thinks it's about to die right before the moment of transformation, when then everyone says, "Oh my, you're so beautiful now." And you said, "Do you understand the mushy mess that I was in between? My God, I didn't know whether I would survive." And I can relate, and many of you who are star seeds can too. And what was horrifying in the message is how she mentioned how many star seeds are opting out, whether that be by suicide intentionally or overdosing to escape and succumbing to the experience of not being in the 3D experience that we each came here to use the avatar of us to be the change that we seek in this world. Hey, hey. Great to have you with us today. Thank you very much, Virgie. Great to see you today. And I'm reflecting on Elizabeth April and the. I'm just going to put this onto gallery view so everybody's in there, which is perfect. So perfect. Thank you. And what she was saying is about what's going on right now actually pulled us out of autopilot, so we could collapse before the system did, and we could be ready to help the ones who didn't think anything was wrong, the ones that had become so accustomed to the sick tank that germ theory says put a healthy fish into a sick tank with a little bit of clean water and then let it adapt and adjust. And soon enough, it will think that it's just sick, not realizing that it's the whole tank. And basically, it forced an identity change onto us before we all went through one together. And individuals were held personally responsible for our choices to live congruently or not, which is my call to action for each of us to understand that truly, right now, our souls are on the line. And we are the ones that must be self-compassionate enough to ourselves to say, I may have chose the left-handed path for a long time, but I can choose to correct my action by choosing what will benefit not just me, but all the ones that could come from us, because we're literally at a point where there is mass genocide happening. And if we don't actually address it, then we're going to be the silent bystanders that did nothing when good people died in an act of in an act of patriotism of sorts, or nationalism, and acting on behalf of what the mind controllers or governmental body would have us do. And it's absolute insanity, which is doing the same thing we've always done, expecting different results, when in that same terrain you likely will hear, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I'm saying, man, it's broken. And we who would actually join together today and watch this or be live on the Zoom replay, I didn't make that information readily available today, other than in the meetup group. So if you're not part of the Peaceful Inner Warriors United group, then you may not have found the code. But if you were, then you would know that you can simply go to the Sacred Self-Compassion Service for March 7th and click on RSVP, or you're confirming your link, and then you get the Zoom link. And I believe the link for the Zoom app is actually in there if you want to be seen in the screen today too. But this is to say that it got me onto the subject of despotism, actually. And I wanted to bring up some definitions, because I feel like we so oftentimes don't understand a term, and then because we don't understand the term, we just gloss over it and pretend that it wasn't there because we didn't understand, and we kind of got everything else, and then we filled in the blanks as to what we presumed that it meant. But I want to just bring in some definitions, including sovereignty, which will be what we talk about on Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the next Lawfully Organized Summit, where we regular people are gathering to talk about solutions and to help actually put energy into a different 4D grid system. Because fear is one of the systems and the grids that are currently at play right now. And then faith is the other. And right now, there has been an attack on faith, and there has been a mass separatism movement to make it so that we think that we're safely separate from each other because we believe different things and put God in different boxes. But the truth is that the boxes are just words. And if we can break down the walls and just let them fall, and then actually keep our own foundations until our foundations become platforms that we can use to link one another's message, to be able to help wake up all of the blue pillars that I could never reach, but that a red pillar who knew a red pillar, who knew a blue pillar, who knew a blue pillar, who knew that blue pillar could reach. That's what we are really needing right now. We can be the ripple effect. We are powerful enough. And ants die on their own, if you didn't know that. And we're the same way, which is why they've created these literal segregation experiences in our own homes to make us feel like we're safe and we're comfortable, but ultimately we're just buying time before then get subjected to a universal income because we've let our economy collapse. And it's just really not okay for us to do nothing. So I'm glad you came today and heard what I have to say, because it's not necessarily right. It's my perspective. And I'm willing to share it because I want you to understand that you're sharing your perspective at this particular crucial time in history when censorship is a problem that we need to be concerned of. Because depersonhood and depersonifying people by putting them into the categories of anti-vaxxers, for instance, or the conspiracy theorists, or the different labels that were put onto people to say, oh, she's got bipolar, a diagnosis I was given when I got locked up in the mental health system, because I basically woke up and in my enlightenment experience, I called myself into the police trying to get to the embassy, feeling like I had found secrets that people it would make me a threat to the very system that I didn't know who else to call for protection from. And so there was a level of mania for sure. And there was a level of discomfort and speed that was not comfortable. And it didn't make people feel safe. And when people don't feel safe, then they don't actually participate because they're too uncomfortable to learn. And if we're too uncomfortable to learn, we just want to go back and seek comfort in our home and get away from all of those crazy ones that say different things that make us challenge what exists already. Because what we do also have to understand before we get to despotism, and then the actual lesson for today, is the fact that cognitive dissonance is real, and it happens when there's two competing beliefs coexisting simultaneously in the same ecosystem. And so that ecosystem is you, the petri dish of who you are. And so we have to really understand that this Game of Thrones experience that we're playing out right now, having watched on the mainstream, and it was awesome. I loved Game of Thrones. I just didn't like that everybody had to die. But then that's kind of what's happening right now, because how do you win a war? You divide and conquer, and then you come in and clean up the rest once they've largely looked after themselves. No, thank you. I would rather band together now instead and say, we the people are the power, that the government are afraid would actually wake up. And then further to that, I want to say that we need to be holding people personally accountable for their choice to participate in a very corrupt and treasonous regime. Because if you turn off the TV in the mainstream, where is this virus? I'm sorry to say. I've talked to a lot of people, and it's not what it's made out to be. Why are we still going along with that and perpetuating that and putting people further into fear? I worked on the front lines as a cashier from March last year until January 15th, when I was put onto an unpaid leave of absence the next day, with all of my shifts then removed and needing to be filled, simply because I won't wear a mask. And I will not say it's okay for our children to grow up thinking it's normal to be fearful and to wear our fear on our face, literally. I'm sorry to those who believe in this whole masquerade, but no, for me, it's like if I'm going to wear a mask, this is it, guys. Unless it's necessary, unless it gets as bad as what it could if we don't step up. And there's more I could go down into that rabbit hole, but I won't because I'm going to get over to despotism, which in practice and by definition, it's the government which denies its ordinary citizens the right to judge the justice of the laws and the name of their enforcement on their fellow citizens at a trial is a despotism, the exercise of absolute power, especially in a cruel and oppressive way, such as making children wear 2 masks to be able to learn when you're not able to breathe at full capacity when or think and perform at full capacity when you're not able to actually breathe deep, which is why we're not even teaching the kids necessarily about breathing exercises of dropping our breath into the lower belly in order to be able to use all of our lungs instead of just the upper half. Because if we're only using the upper half and we're masked on top of that, that's horrible for the body, which is the beautiful system that we're not being taught enough about, that we really need to begin to understand who we truly are. It says that a country or political system where the ruler holds absolute power is what despotism is. Normally, the despot is an individual identified as an entity, which can also take the form of concentrated energy at someone or something, which is when we have to better understand what an entity is. An entity is a thing with distinct and independent existence because the momentum of the idea of the thing grows in energy to the point of magnetizing your focus to you. And that means your thoughts truly are things. And since 1215, the English people revered and called the Magna Carta the Palladium of the people's liberties. Jury's duty was the foundation of the people's sincere belief that all Britons would never be slaves. Palladium, by definition, is any safeguard, a symbol, metaphorical or statutory, which represents the protection of the liberties and rights of man. What does it mean to be a man or woman naturally is what then we must ask ourselves. If we are living in an environment that is genetically modified and that is patenting seeds of which we are and our thoughts are too, and each of those then create entities. We're an entity in and of our own selves, but our thoughts can create entities or thought forms that actually become energetic patterns that others can tune into and that can come to us. It's like in the video episode Michael Seegers and I did about spiritual warfare and the nature of evil, actually making it E-VEIL, where we understand that if we don't understand what's coming at us, we'll think something is our feeling when our feelings are just the interpretation of the energies in our midst and the energies that are coming up for us. But if we're taking those personally, which Don Miguel Ruiz says not to do in his 4 agreements, the Toltec wisdom guide, I'd highly recommend and read aloud. If you wanted to go back and listen to me read it, you can. It's very short, it's simple. Be impeccable with your word. Don't make assumptions. Always do your best. And don't take things personally because it's never actually about you. We're just mirrors to one another, which is why it is so important to say that if we're living in an environment that is genetically modified and that encourages and promotes the masking, multi-layered masking of its citizens, understanding a citizen is a property of the area where they citizen or member of, which then makes them property of that which they have the most content of, which means a human being could be patentable if we don't actually step up and say, no thanks, I am a natural man, I am a natural woman. But why do you think the native people were attacked with the with the Native Residential Schools Act back not that long ago? when they were wiped out in their remembrance of who they truly are. And by membrance, I do mean their membership to it, because now we're being called to remember who we originally were and who they knew themselves to be because of their connection with Creator and with nature and who they truly were. And that was then bred out of them and replaced with trauma and pain and all of what they went through to gain the experience of corruption that was then bred into the bloodline, and that we who are watching this message have a chance to break through. Now, I understand I've been live for almost 28 minutes here, and so I want to make sure that we get to it, but I did want to just touch on the fact that a palladium is a safeguard. A symbol, metaphorical or statutory, that represents the protection of the liberties and rights of man. And then that's when we have to ask what it means to be a man or woman, and how might you think our children are doing with healthy sexuality when they're all confused about who they like and how they want their parts to be, because making significant bodily adjustments to an avatar in the video games so many of our younger generations were raised with, that now kids think that just because they want something done doesn't mean it's the best thing for them. As I learned by getting my sweat glands removed underneath of my arms, which I've got big scars for, and I've saved others from doing it, and ultimately it didn't work because I still sweat and I've got big scars, and it messed up my body's ability to naturally regulate myself as well. So it's like I didn't understand that when I was 15 and made that choice. And now that I'm 33, and even if when I was like 17 or 20, I would have wished that I hadn't done it, but I couldn't go back, because once I did it, it was done. It's just like with getting the Gardasil shot. I wish I hadn't, because what's in that is no good for anyone, really, if we actually look up the ingredients. But who is? Anyone that's talking about it's getting banned and defamed. And that's just how it works. And the reason why conspiracy theories, in the first place, the title of it was actually applied to anyone who questioned JFK's assassination, in order to defame the one that was promulgating the information that was actually the truth but inconvenient to the story that was being sold, and thus they were discredited. The story was given fame, and therefore no one thought they had anything to gain by telling the truth. And that's when we learned to live in shame, that the truth was stranger than fiction. No early exits are acceptable if preventable. So please, no more suiciding. Truly, to our people, this is an important message, and then we'll get to the real one for the day. And I appreciate your patience and grace. We must be willing to change and unlock who we truly are, and we're able to recover and anchor the light at an even deeper level. Sickness can activate us in an experience of being forced to surrender and reboot. The virus activates those who are willing to change, because we finally ask for help. We have become so independent that we've stopped asking for higher assistance and forgot how to do it. Please understand there is no solution to the problem that shut the world down except for raising our own consciousness by changing the vibration of our relationships, because that's the foundation of our lives in the greatest test of our own awakening and ability to choose and realize we have the free will. To understand awakening, you must understand the ripple effect by intentionally creating vibrations in your own body. We must raise our vibration and set our intention to create the placebo effect of positive thinking. If you're making the decision to alter yourself, ask yourself if you're ready to fight for your humanity within yourself. Because we will either approach life from the perspective of fear or faith. We can create change for the world by raising the vibration of what we're all being affected by. We are a whole unit needing to call in the support of the greatest and highest helpers available. We must release the ball of energy associated with things that we are fearful of so we can create productive change moving forward. So we must be willing to be clear about where we will actually place our attention. Although I am on the same wave of awareness with you, I thought this was a reading from Julia Cameron's Artist's Way. Indeed it is. We will get there. But I did have something that I wanted to say beforehand. So that's what happened this morning, and it is now 10:33, and so we will get to it. And I appreciate your paying attention in the meantime. So here we go. Recovering a sense of possibility. This week, you are being asked to examine your payoffs in remaining stuck. You will explore how you curtail your own possibilities by placing limits on the good you can receive. You will examine the cost of settling for appearing good instead of being authentic. You may find yourself thinking about radical changes, no longer ruling out your growth by making others the cause of your constriction. So, this is a week with quite a few exercises and 14 pages. So, limits. One of the chief barriers to accepting God's generosity is our limited notion of what we are, in fact, able to accomplish. We may tune into the voice of the Creator within, hear a message, and then discount it as crazy or impossible, which is the reason that I actually spent as much time as what I did on the message that came before this today. It may seem crazy or impossible, but this is a week to talk about possibility. On the one hand, we take ourselves very seriously and don't want to look like idiots pursuing some patently grandiose scheme. On the other hand, we don't take ourselves or God seriously enough, and so we define as grandiose many schemes that with God's help may fall well within our grasp. Remembering that God is my source, we are in the spiritual position of having an unlimited bank account. Most of us never consider how powerful the Creator really is. Instead, we draw very limited amounts of the power available to us. We decide how powerful God is for us. We unconsciously set a limit on how much God can give us or help us. We are stingy with ourselves, and if we receive a gift beyond our imagining, we often send it back. Some of you may be thinking that this sounds like the magic wand chapter. I pray and presto. Sometimes that is how it will feel. More often, what we are talking about seems to be a conscious partnership in which we work along slowly and gradually, clearing away the wreckage of our negative patterning, clarifying the vision of what it is we want, learning to accept small pieces of that vision from whatever source, and then one day, presto. The vision seems to suddenly be in place. In other words, pray and catch the bus, then run as fast as you can. For this to happen, first of all, we must believe that we are allowed to catch the bus. We come to realize or recognize that God is unlimited in supply and that everyone has equal access. This begins to clear up guilt about having or getting too much. Since everyone can draw on the universal supply, we deprive no one with our abundance. If we learn to think of receiving God's good as being an act of worship, cooperating with God's plan to manifest goodness in our lives, we can begin to let go of having to sabotage ourselves. One reason we are miserly with ourselves is scarcity thinking. We don't want our luck to run out. We don't want to overspend our spiritual abundance. Once again, we are limiting our flow by anthropomorphizing God into a capricious parent figure, remembering that God is our source, an energy flow that likes to extend itself. We become more able to tap our creative power effectively. God has lots of money. God has lots of movie ideas, novel ideas, poems, songs, paintings, acting jobs. God has a supply of loves, friends, houses that are all available to us. By listening to the Creator within, we are led to our right path. On that path, we find friends, lovers, money, and meaningful work. Very often, when we cannot seem to find an adequate supply, it is because we are insisting on a particular human source of supply. We must learn to let the flow manifest itself where it will, not where we will it. Expect your every need to be met. Expect the answer to every problem. Expect abundance on every level. Expect to grow spiritually. Eileen Caddy. Kara, a writer, spent far longer than she should remaining in an abusive agent relationship because she thought it would be creative suicide to sever that professional tie. The relationship was plagued with evasions, half-truths, delays. Kara hung in, afraid to let go of her agent's prestige. Finally, after a particularly abusive phone call, Kara wrote a letter severing the relationship. She felt as if she had just jumped into outer space. When her husband came home, She tearfully told him how she had sabotaged her career. He listened and then said, "A week ago I was in this bookstore and the owner asked me if you had a good agent. He gave me this woman's name and number. Call her." Tearfully, Kara acquiesced. She got on the phone and connected immediately to the new agent's sensibility. They have been working together very successfully ever since. To my eye, this is a story not only of synchronicity, but also of right dependence on universe as source. Once Kara became willing to receive her good from whatever source it appeared in, she stopped being victimized. I recently had a woman artist tell me that she got her new and excellent agent by using affirmations. Even after years of artistic recovery, I still have my cynical side that says, it was as though we want to believe God can create the subatomic structure, but is clueless when faced with how to aid or fix our painting, sculpture, writing, film. I recognize that many will balk at the simplicity of this concept. God doesn't run the movie business, we want to say. CAA does. I want to sound a cautionary note here for all artists who put their creative lives into solely human hands. This can block your good. The desire to be worldly, sophisticated, and smart often blocks our flow. We have ideas and opinions about where our good should flow from. As a Hollywood screenwriter, I had many rueful conversations with other screenwriters about the fact that while our agents were often invaluable, we seemed to get an awful lot of breaks from places like my next door neighbor, my dentist's dog, my dentist's brother, or somebody my wife went to college with. Those breaks are God, the source in action. I have said before that creativity is a spiritual matter. Any progress is made by leaps of faith, some action and some small and some large leaps of faith. At first, we may want faith to take the first dance class, the first step toward learning a new medium. Later, we may want the faith and the funds for further classes, seminars, a larger workspace, a year's sabbatical. Later still, we may conceive an idea for a book, an artist collective gallery space. As each idea comes to us, we must, in good faith, clear away our inner barriers to acting on it, and then, on an outer level, take the concrete steps necessary to trigger our synchronous good. If this still sounds airy-fairy to you, ask yourself bluntly what next step you are evading. What dream are you discounting as impossible given your resources? What payoff are you getting for remaining stuck at this point in your expansion? God as my source is a simple but completely effective plan for living. It removes negative dependency and anxiety from our lives by assuring us that God will provide. Our job is to listen for how. One way we listen is by writing our morning pages. At night before we fall asleep, we can list areas in which we need guidance. In the morning, writing on these same topics, we find ourselves seeing previously unseen avenues of approach. Experiment with this two-step process. Ask for answers in the evening, listen for answers in the morning. Be open to all help. Look and you will find it. What is unsought will go undetected. Sophocles. It is within my power either to serve God or to not serve him. Serving him, I add to my own good and the good of the whole world. Not serving him, I forfeit my own good and deprive the world of that good which is in my power to create. Leo Tolstoy. Finding the river. For 4 weeks now, we have been excavating our consciousness. We have seen how often we think negatively and fearfully, how frightening it has been for us to begin to believe that there might be a right place for us that we could attain by listening to our creative voice and following its guidance. We have begun to hope, and we have feared that hope. The shift to spiritual dependency is a gradual one. We have been making this shift slowly and surely. With each day, we become more true to ourselves, more open to the positive. To our surprise, it seems to be working in our human relationships. We find we are able to tell more of our truth, hear more of other people's truth, and encompass a far more kindly attitude toward both. We are becoming less judgmental of ourselves and others. How is this possible? The morning pages, the flowing stream of consciousness, gradually loosens our hold on fixed opinions and short-sighted views. We see that our moods, views, and insights are transitory. We acquire a sense of movement, a current of change in our lives. This current or river is a flow of grace moving us to our right livelihood, companions, destiny. Dependence on the Creator within it is really freedom from all other dependencies. Paradoxically, it is also the only route to real intimacy with other human beings. Freed from our terrible fears of abandonment, we are able to live with more spontaneity. Freed from our constant demands for more and more reassurance, our fellows are able to love us back without feeling so burdened. As we have listened to our artist child within, it has begun to feel more and more safe. Feeling safe, it speaks a little louder. Even on our worst days, a small positive voice says, "You could still do this," or "It might be fun to do that." Most of us find that as we work with the morning pages, we are rendered less rigid than we were before. Recovery is the process of finding the river and saying yes to its flow, rapids and all. We startle ourselves by saying yes instead of no to opportunities. As we begin to pry ourselves loose from our old self concepts, we find that our new emerging self may enjoy all sorts of bizarre adventures. Michelle, a hardworking dress for success lawyer, enrolled in flamenco dancing lessons and loved them. Her house, formerly a sleek, careerist, high tech showcase, suddenly began filling up with lush plants, plump pillows, sensuous incense. Tropical colors bloomed in the once white walls. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to cook a little and then to sew again. She was still a successful lawyer, but her life took on a rounded shape. She laughed more, looked prettier. "I can't believe I'm doing this," she would announce with delight as she launched into some new venture. And then, "I can't believe I didn't do this sooner." By holding light to an attitude of gentle exploration, we can begin to lean into creative expansion. By replacing no way with maybe, we open the door to mystery and to magic. This newly positive attitude is the beginning of trust. We are starting to look for the silver lining in what appears to be adversity. Most of us find that as we work with the morning pages, we begin to treat ourselves more gently, feeling less desperate. We are less harsh with ourselves and with others. This compassion is one of the first fruits of aligning our creativity with its creator. As we come to trust and love our internal guide, we lose our fear of intimacy because we are no longer confused. Because we no longer confuse our intimate others with the higher power we are coming to know. In short, we are learning to give up adultery, the worshipful dependency on any person, place, or thing. Instead, we place our dependency on the source itself. The source meets our needs through people, places, and things. That's where I was saying about the entities gain energy when we give them the attention. So if we're doing that, it's actually adultery. Instead, we place our dependency on the source itself. The source meets our needs through people, places, and things. This concept is a very hard one for most of us to really credit. We tend to believe we must go out and shake a few trees to make things happen. I would not deny that shaking a few trees is good for us. In fact, I believe it is necessary. I call it doing the footwork. I want to say, however, that while the footwork is necessary, I have seldom seen it pay off in a linear fashion. It seems to work more like we shake the apple tree and the universe delivers oranges. Time and again, I have seen a recovering artist do the footwork of becoming internally clear and focused about dreams and delights, take a few outward steps in the direction of the dream, only to have the universe fling open an unsuspected door. One of the central tasks of creative recovery, is learning to accept this generosity. Often people attempt to live their lives backward. They try to have more things or more money in order to do more of what they want so that they will be happier. The way it actually works is the reversed. You must first be who you really are, then do what you need to do in order to have what you want. Margaret Young. The Virtue Trap. An artist must have downtime, time to do nothing. Defending our right to such time takes courage, conviction, and resiliency. Such time, space, and quiet will strike our family and friends as a withdrawal from them. It is. For an artist, withdrawal is necessary. Without it, the artist in us feels vexed, angry, out of sorts. If such deprivation continues, our artist becomes sullen, depressed, hostile. We eventually become like cornered animals, snarling at our family and friends to leave us alone and stop making unreasonable demands. We are the ones making unreasonable demands. We expect our artist to be able to function without giving it what it needs to do so. An artist requires the upkeep of creative solitude. An artist requires the healing of alone time. Without this period of recharging, our artist becomes depleted. Over time, it becomes something worse than out of sorts. Death threats are issued. We are traditionally rather proud of ourselves for having slipped creative work in there between the domestic chores and obligations. I'm not sure we deserve such big A pluses for that, said Toni Morrison, the author. In the early stages, these death threats are issued to our intimates. I could kill you when you interrupt me. Woe to the spouse who doesn't take the hint. Woe to the hapless child who doesn't give you solitude. You're making me very angry. Over time, if our warnings are ignored and we deem to stay in whatever circumstance, marriage, job, friendship, requires threats and warnings. Homicide gives way to suicide. I want to kill myself replaces I could murder you. What's the use? Replaces our feelings of joy and satisfaction. We may go through the actions of continuing our life. We may even continue to produce creatively, but we are leeching blood from ourselves, vampirizing our souls. In short, we are on the treadmill of virtuous production, and we are caught. We are caught in the virtue trap. There are powerful payoffs to be found in staying stuck and deferring, nurturing your sense of self. For many creatives, the belief that they must be nice and worry about what will happen with their friend's family mate if they dare to do what they really want to constitutes a powerful reason for non-action. A man who works in a busy office may crave and need the retreat of solitude. Nothing would serve him better than a vacation alone, but he thinks that's selfish, so he doesn't do it. It wouldn't be nice to his wife. A woman with 2 small children wants to take a pottery class. It conflicts with one of her son's little league practices, and she wouldn't be able to attend as faithful audience. She cancels pottery and plays the good mother, seething on the sidelines with resentments. A young father with a serious interest in photography yearns for a place in the home to pursue his interest. The installation of a modest family darkroom would require dipping into savings and deferring the purchase of a new couch. The darkroom doesn't get set up, but the new couch does. Many recovering creatives sabotage themselves most frequently by making nice. There is a tremendous cost to such erasis virtue. Many of us have made a virtue out of deprivation. We have embraced a long-suffering artistic anorexia as a martyr's cross. We have used it to feed a false sense of spirituality grounded in being good, meaning superior. I call this seductive faux spirituality the virtue trap. Spirituality has often been misused as a route to an unloving solitude, a stance where we proclaim ourselves above our human nature. This spiritual superiority is really only one more form of denial. For an artist, virtue can be deadly. The urge toward respectability and maturity can be stultifying, even fatal. We strive to be good, to be nice, to be helpful, to be unselfish. We want to be generous, of service, of the world, but what we really want is to be left alone. When we can't get others to leave us alone, we eventually abandon ourselves. To others, we may look like we're there. We may act like we're there, but our true self has gone to ground. What's left is a shell of our whole self. It stays because it is caught. Like a listless circus animal prodded into performing, it does its tricks. It goes through its routine. It earns its applause. But all of the hoopla falls on deaf ears. We are dead to it. Our artist is not merely out of sorts. Our artist has checked out. Our life is now an out-of-body experience. We're gone. A clinician might call it disassociating. I call it leaving the scene of the crime. Come out, wherever you are, we wheedle, but our creative self no longer trusts us. Why should it? We sold it out. Afraid to appear selfish, we lose ourself. We become self-destructive because this self-murder is something we seek passively rather than consciously act out. We are often blind to its poisonous grip on us. The question, are you self-destructive, is asked so frequently that we seldom hear it accurately. What it means is, are you destructive to yourself? And what that really asks us is, are you destructive of your true nature? Many people caught in the virtue trap do not appear to be self-destructive to the casual eye. Bent on being good husbands, fathers, mothers, wives, teachers, whatevers, they have constructed a false self that looks good to the world and meets with a lot of worldly approval. This false self is always patient, always willing to defer its needs to meet the needs or demands of another. What a great guy. That Fred gave up his concert tickets to help me move on a Friday night. Virtuous to a fault, these trapped creatives have destroyed the true self, the self that didn't meet with much approval as a child, the self who heard repeatedly, don't be selfish. The true self is a disturbing character, healthy and occasionally anarchistic, who knows how to play, how to say no to others and yes to itself. Now I know why I read that for 30 minutes. Thank you for your patience, and hopefully you're understanding the interconnection too. Creatives who are caught in the virtue trap still cannot let themselves approve of this true self. They can't show it to the world without dreading the world's continued disapproval. Can you believe it? Fred used to be such a nice guy, always ready to help me out. Anytime, any place, I asked him to help me move last week and he said he was going to a play. When did Fred get so cultured, I ask you? Fred knows full well that if he stops being so nice, fabulous Fred, his outsized, nice guy alter ego will bite the dust. Martyred Mary knows the same thing as she agrees to round 5 of babysitting for her sister so she can go out. Saying no to her sister would be saying yes to herself. And that is responsibility. And that is a responsibility that Mary just can't handle. Free on a Friday night? What would she do with herself? That's a good question, and one of the many that Mary and Fred use their virtue to ignore. Ooh, we got a question. All right. What's up? Please. What's your question, Birgie?
Brigitte, I'm just saying I have to step off at 11. I'm hoping to catch a brief meditation. And that's only 10 minutes from 11 to 11:10, but I notice your session goes till 11:10. And I'm wondering if you're going to be going through any exercises before that.
Well, we're going to get to, generally what I've been reading is I've been just going through. Have you caught any of the other ones we've been doing, Birgie?
No, I've done I have the Artist's Way book, and I've done a couple of groups over the years.
Okay.
And so when I saw the description of yours, that was why I joined, and also because it mentioned self-compassion. So I thought there might be some meditation. I was curious what you were doing.
Yeah, generally what I have been doing is just reading out the actual book so that people could then, and what I'll do is I'll cut it and then I'll put it all together and then we can do a course, but definitely going deeper into it. If you're looking for more of a study group, then I haven't been doing meditations and breath work and that kind of thing specifically, but certainly talking about some of those things we have been doing and bringing those into future ones I can definitely consider doing that. So I'll definitely consider that. It's not going to be today. So if you've already went through the book, then if you want to get to the meditation at 11, I totally understand that. But I sincerely appreciate your coming and for even asking that question, because these services truly do. It's my intention to bring people together and to give people a space to uplift themselves, to gain access to alternative perspectives and have a space to do it with other people. So thank you for putting up your hand and letting me know instead of jumping off without any context. So, and if you have any feedback as well, I'd love to hear what this meant to you, what it means for you, and what you're going to do with what you heard here and how you can really bring it to life, because that's how we really take our meditation to the next level, is taking what we went through in the journey that took us to the moment we got to the meditation, for us to then let it all be in the space without being the traffic that actually we run out in front of to interrupt our thoughts about. So if that's a useful reference before you go to the meditation, that's that was in a...
Can you say that analogy again? Running out into traffic? What?
Yeah,
Can you clarify that again?
Yeah, so when you're meditating, if you actually think of your thoughts like traffic, and imagine yourself sitting on a rock, and it's just like, instead of running out into traffic and chasing the thought that relates to some not now moment.
Oh, yeah.
So you just watch the traffic, and when you realize that you've just run out into traffic, it's a really useful way of saying, I've run into the traffic, and that's not sensible or safe for me to get lost in what I don't have any control over. So I'm just going to go sit on my rock again. And it just kind of takes it to a more practical, fun, childlike level, instead of saying, oh my, I ran away with my thoughts. It's like, oh, I ran into traffic and I'm coming back now.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually did do that literally once, years ago on my porch, sat there meditating, watching the traffic going by.
Yeah. Life literally is the best meditation. So yeah.
So thank you, but it's 10:59, so I'm going to jump off. I'm going to see if I can join this group. And I think what you're doing is wonderful, and I would love to connect with you some more. Where are you based, by the way?
I'm in Ontario. So I'm in Norfolk County, out in the...
Me too.
Are you really?
I'm in Brant County.
Oh, no way. Okay, yeah. I'm in Vanessa. So
I'm in Brantford, near in between West Brampton to Tella Heights.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, Bergie, we'll connect. You have a great meditation. Thanks for tuning in today. And I'll continue on with this and look forward to connecting offline. So just shoot me a private message with your email and then or phone number, and we can definitely connect.
Sure. I can put my phone number in here in the chat just before I leave.
That's perfect.
That's like serendipitous. I pay attention to synchronicities. So
yeah, that's awesome. All right, fantastic. I'm going to get back to reading. Unless did you want to say anything as a message for somebody that may be going through the start of a week that could look really tough?
There were so many things in the reading like that were good reminders, because I'm also attending codependence meetings, which have been helpful. And I've struggled with that, like being, what did you call it? The virtue, there's something virtue.
Yeah, the virtuous artist, the virtue trap.
Yeah, the virtue trap, where I've like given of myself and I'm the go-to person and left nothing for myself. And it's very easy to fall into blame and criticism of the others. But I'm making those choices. And why was I making those choices? And why do I continually not leave myself time? So I continue staying in the stuck trap, not doing my art, not doing my writing, not pursuing my dreams and passions. That's a choice I'm making, but it's very easy to blame on others. And so I think we move more forward if we can actually look inside, look inward, and be truly, authentically honest and sincere with ourselves without holding anyone else responsible. Absolutely. And so if it's a commitment we have to someone, then we've chosen to make that commitment. So what's behind that commitment? If I'm choosing to be the go-to person and have a hard time saying no, what am I getting out of it? Why am I committed to that?
Love it.
So that's it, but I got to run. Yeah. Okay.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I got it. So we'll connect and have a great rest of your week, and we'll connect sooner than that.
Okay. All right. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right, guys. And that is how it is done when you actually just go with what shows up, instead of saying, well, we've got to wait until I'm finished. And so sometimes we might. I'm just going to move Saint Germain over so he is in the frame. And yeah, that was fun. All right. So we've just got a couple more pages to go. Many recovering artists sabotage themselves most frequently by making nice. There is a tremendous cost to such eras virtue. Many of us made a virtue out of deprivation. We have embraced a long-suffering artistic anorexia as a martyr's cross. We have used it to feed a sense of spirituality grounded in being good, meaning superior. I call this seductive faux spirituality the virtue trap. Spirituality has often been misused as a route to an unloving solitude, a stance where we proclaim ourselves above our human nature. This spiritual superiority is really only one more form of denial. For an artist, virtue can be deadly. The urge toward respectability and maturity can be stultifying, even fatal. We strive to be good, to be nice, to be helpful, to be unselfish. We want to be generous, of service, of the world. But what we really want is to be left alone. When we can't get others to leave us alone, we eventually abandon ourselves. To others, we may look like we're there, we may act like we're there, but our true self has gone to ground. What's left is a shell of our whole self. It stays because it is caught. Like a listless circus animal prodded into performing, it does its tricks. It goes through its routine. It earns its applause, but all of the hoopla falls on deaf ears. We are dead to it. Our artist is not merely out of sorts. Our artist has checked out. Our life is now an out-of-body experience. We're gone. A clinician might call it disassociating. I call it leaving the scene of the crime. Come out, wherever you are, we wheedle, but our creative self no longer trusts us. Why should it? We sold it out. Afraid to appear selfish, we lose ourself. We become self-destructive. Because of this, self-murder is something we seek passively rather than consciously act out. We are often blind to its poisonous grip on us. The question, are you self-destructive, is asked so frequently that we seldom hear it accurately. What it means is, are you destructive to yourself? And what it really asks us is, are you destructive of your true nature? I appreciate that I read all of that before, but that is a very poignant reminder still. So, many people caught in the virtue trap do not appear to be self-destructive to the causal eye, bent on being good husbands, fathers, mothers, wives, teachers, whatevers. They have constructed a false sense that looks good to the world and meets with a lot of worldly approval. This false self is always patient, always willing to defer its needs to meet the needs or demands of another, including build herd immunity, which changed its definition October 2020, interestingly enough. So now it's all focused on what it means to inoculate or V yourself. What a great guy that Fred gave up his concert tickets to help me move on a Friday night. And then they changed their perception because he's no longer as convenient as he was before. Are you self-destructive is a question that the apparently virtuous would be bound to answer with a resounding no. They then conjure up a list proving how responsible they are, but responsible to whom? The question is, are you self-destructive? Not, do you appear self-destructive? And most definitely not, are you nice to other people? We listen to other people's ideas of what is self-destructive without ever looking at whether their self and our self have similar needs. Caught in the virtue trap, we refuse to ask ourselves, what are my needs? What would I do if it weren't too selfish? Are you self-destructive? This is a very difficult question to answer. To begin with, it requires that we know something of our true self, and that is the very self we have been systematically destroying. One quick way to ascertain the degree of drift is to ask yourself this question: what would I try if it weren't too crazy? Scuba diving, skydiving, belly dancing, Latin dancing, getting my poems published, buying a drum set, bicycling through France. If your list looks pretty exciting, even if crazy, then you are on the right track. These crazy notions are actually voices from your future self. What would I do if it weren't too selfish? Sign up for scuba lessons, take the Latin dancing class at the Y, buy the Poets Market, and make a submission a week. Get the used drum set my cousin is trying to sell. Call my travel agent and check out France. By seeking the creator within and embracing our own gift of creativity, we learn to be spiritual in this world, to trust that God is good, and so are we, and so is all of creation. In this way, we avoid the virtue trap. The virtue trap quiz is a series of 10 questions. The biggest lack in my life is, the greatest joy in my life is, my largest time commitment is, as I play more, I work, I feel guilty that I worry that if my dreams come true, my family will, I sabotage myself so people will. If I let myself feel it, I'm angry that one reason I get sad sometimes is, does your life serve you or only others? Are you self-destructive? And as someone that has definitely been self-destructive for many points in my life, I can truly say that answering questions that help us become more aware is key. I have written most every day for years. For 10 years, I've been a certified coach, teacher, speaker. So literally this month, I signed up for the John Maxwell team 10 years ago. So it's literally like the decade anniversary of when I changed my life entirely and everything changed for me. So the virtue trap, I can definitely relate to that. And yet, if we don't actually do the exercises, we don't get to fill in the blanks. We don't get to get familiar with our story. And that makes it harder for us to tell the story when somebody asks us a question. So I want to actually say that I spiel, I can talk no problem for as long as you need, really, depending what the subject matter is. But when it's talking about emotions, or when it's talking about consciousness and belief systems and identity and self-image and self-belief and compassion and those kind of things, certainly I definitely can go on for a long time. Talk science or math, I opt out very quickly because I'm not an expert. So know your expertise is definitely very key in all of this. We're going to just keep going. Forbidden joys and exercise. One of the favorite tricks of blocked creatives is saying no to ourselves. It is astonishing the number of small ways we discover to be mean and miserly with ourselves. When I say this to my students, they often protest that this is not true, that they are very good to themselves. Then I ask them to do this exercise. List 10 things you love and would love to do but are not allowed to do. Your list might look like this. Go dancing, carry a sketchbook, rollerblade, buy new cowboy boots, streak your hair blonde, go on vacation, take flying lessons, move to a bigger place, direct a play, take life drawing class. Very often, the mere act of writing out your list of forbidden joys breaks down your barriers to doing them. Post this list somewhere highly visible. So whatever you have not given yourself permission to do previously, I say at 11:11, write that list of 10 things down so that you can actually go through them and give yourself permission to do them and change your life. The wish list, an exercise. One of the best ways we can evade our censor is to use the technique of speed reading. Because wishes are just wishes, they are allowed to be frivolous and frequently should be taken very seriously. As quickly as you can, finish the following phrases. And you have 19 spots that say, I wish, I wish, I wish. 19 times with the 19th saying, I most especially wished. So if you can make a list of 19 wishes that you have, your tasks now are the following to explore and expand your relationship to the source. The reason I can't really believe in a supportive God is, and then list 5 grievances. God can take it. Start an imaging file. Starting an image file. If I had either faith or money, I would try. List 5 desires. For the next week, be alert for images of these desires. When you spot them, clip them, buy them, photograph them, draw them, collect them somewhere, somehow. With these images, begin a file of dreams that speak to you. Add to it continually for the duration of the course, which actually means that we can create a vision board. And I have a book called The Invisible Power or Your Invisible Power by Genevieve Behrend, which is an amazing book. And so this book here, we're going to get to as well at some point, because this is a very short and powerful book about visualization that can really help us put to order what we want to create. One more time, list 5 imaginary lives. Have they changed? Are you doing more parts of them? You may want to add images of these lives to your image file. So basically, these are 5 expressions of yourself in other experiences of life that you are now going to get to define. If I were 20 and had money, list 5 adventures that you would go on and add images of these to your visual image file or vision board, like what we'll create together. And that's going to be part of the Peaceful Inner Warriors United special practice design that we will be creating this month. So it's all really kicking off this week. And so I can't wait to share more details with you tomorrow. If I were 65 and had money, post 5 postponed pleasures. And again, collect these images. This is a very potent tool. I now live in a house that I imagined for 10 years, she said. 10 ways I am mean to myself are, just as making the positive explicit helps allow it into our lives, making the negative explicit helps us to exercise it. 10 items I would like to own that I don't are, and again, you may want to collect these images in order to boost sales. Experts in sales motivation often teach rookie salesmen to post images of what they would like to own. It works because then you draw it to you because you amplify the amount of energy attached to the entity of that thought, so that we start to actually identify entities just as accumulated energies associated with a thing that becomes known as what the entity is. It's like an archetype, which is a familiar pattern that gets filled in with the energies that we put into it. And so, for instance, the 4 survival archetypes, all of us understand because they're within all of us, are the child, victim, saboteur, and prostitute, of which we each have a scared side and a sacred one. And we have to really decide which aspect we're going to feed, because that's ultimately the fight between the good and the evil that's happening within, like the 2 wolves the Cherokee grandfather told his grandson about one night when he said, "There's a war within you." And the grandson, "Which wolf will win?" And he said, "The one you feed." So I cut that down way far because I didn't even say that it was a fight between a white and a black wolf representing good and evil and all of the details that you can get online. But the point and the premise is to say that it all comes down to where we put our energy, which is why I say we've got to add an extra E into humanity and make it hyphenated so that now we actually become the men we see in the hue manatee with an extra E that makes it about the hue of all skins, because we don't need to separate ourselves any longer based on fictitious separators that make no difference when you actually look beyond the surface. Honestly, my favorite creative block is TV, overreading, friends, work, rescuing others, overexercise, you name it. Whether you can draw it or not, please cartoon yourself indulging in it. So whatever distractive mechanisms, I'll have to be like Ariel in The Little Mermaid in her little cavern. I've got gadgets and gizmos aplenty. I've got who's its and what's its galore. You want thingamabobs? I've got 20. But who cares? I want more. I want me. I might have liked Little Mermaid when I was little, and I don't think that she was actually talking about wanting herself, because we're trained to want everyone else except for ourselves, truly. But if we actually go back, that is what, when we seek, we find everything else then falls into line. My payoff for staying blocked is, she says, this may This you may want to explore in your morning pages. So really start to understand, why are you blocked? What is the payoff you're getting for it? Because ultimately, whenever we're doing something, we're getting something for doing that behavior. So really great awareness from earlier as well. That was absolutely excellent that Bergie was able to identify even in herself and what she's involved with as well. So very cool. The person I blame for being blocked is who? Again, use your pages to mull on this one, because that will really help you unpeel the layers of hurt and pain, and just getting back to that whole idea of a grid system with different patterns overlaid over top of one another, like within a song. It's like you don't have to play the whole orchestra together in order to have an orchestral experience. All you have to do is get the saxophone player to record their piece, and the piano player to record theirs, and the singers to record theirs, and the bass player and the drums and the maracas, and each of the different instruments, just get them to play their own and then submit them all together, and they should become harmonious if they were all working towards the common goal anyway. So that's how you overlay music, and our experiences are done in the same way energetically. So there's a check-in here, the final 4 things we'll say before we get to the end of the chapter for today. How many days this week did you do your morning pages? Are you starting to like them at all? How was the experience for you? Have you developed or have you discovered the page and a half truth point yet? Many of us find that pay dirt in our writing occurs after a page and a half of vamping. Many of us find that page dirt in, that pay dirt. I've never heard that expression. Many of us find that pay dirt in our writing occurs after a page and a half of vamping. Did you do your artist date this week? Have you had the experience of hearing answers during this leisure time? What did you do for your date? How did it feel? Have you taken an artist date that really felt adventurous? Did you experience any synchronicity this week? What was it? Try inaugurating a conversation on synchronicity with your friends. And were there any other issues this week that you consider significant for your recovery? Describe them. And that is the end of the week on possibility. The next week, we'll be getting into recovering a sense of abundance. I am aware that I spent quite a lot of time on something other than what the point was meant to be. So we thought when we said we'd read The Artist's Way. And then it goes back to the self-compassion that we are being called to experience right now together. And so I really want to bring into our awareness, into our heart, the opportunity to breathe deep and what that means, and the reminder of what it means to feel seen when we are actually able to be fully present and to know that we are the one observing ourselves, observing being observed. We are the center point of it all. That is why the French call the heart the coeur. Le coeur is the heart. And inside of that, you have the threefold flame that Saint Germain helped to bring into our experience, the violet flame, which is not of the Sacred Heart, that carries the power, wisdom, and love plumes within the sacred fire of the soul. And yet, violet fire is actually a way for us to infuse our energy and our aura field with an energy of purple that will keep us from actually being able to be fully present. I got distracted by the post that makes me wonder whether, in fact, I am able to. Whoops, nope. Does anyone have any questions? Is the question. Sending love and prayers to you, my friends. It's true. I send you my prayers. Nobody has any questions. All right. Well, it's nice to see that at least one of you is with me and over on YouTube too. We are going to... Oh, YouTube. We are. Perfect. Hello. Amazing. Hello from Manchester. Very good. Love it. So that was what we were doing this morning. We did fit in the starseed reading and also the point about the overlays. So we're going to just do another card before we go. The one that landed is Earth School, Life Lessons, Soul Growth, Study, and Higher Learning. So remember that before you dive off, that none of us make it safely out of life alive, and yet we are here to not just survive, but to thrive. And that whale and orca elders want us to share our song, Frequency of Sound, and diving deep with the world, which is why on Tuesday at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time, Jared Wade and myself will be coming together for the Mad Hatter's Mystic Music Summit, where we will be working on the album 22 compilation project, where 22 artists will be coming together to submit songs of a higher frequency that are aligned with healing vibrations, such as 432 hertz and 528 gigahertz or hertz. So the point is that we are really getting the tools that we have to use out of the frame because we're going to use them. And so it's just about putting them into the frame instead of necessarily having them be seen on the wall as a certificate that makes us say that we're good, when what we're going to do is just actually show it by embodying it. And that's why we say your life is a canvas. This is about manifestation, creative accountability, understanding that we are the ones that stand on the mountaintop of awareness and understand that the climb of ascension is multi-stepped and that we have to keep going even when things get hard. And remember, the soul plan, the fated life versus the life of destiny. That's what we get to choose, what we're going to do. That emotional pool of water that she holds in her hand is ultimately the unlimited abundance that is available to each of us once we remember who and whose we truly were, always are. And you'll survive this. New solutions are beginning. The inner earth has shown up to remind us that we will be all right. So please do not fright. And remember that you may be an empath who forgot or did not know you were before. And now you're being reminded that your energies or the emotions that you perceive may not be yours. So have compassion with yourself. And remember that it is not about what someone wants you to be for their own sake. Instead, it is about deep love, birth as a portal, the mother's love. It is about reconnecting with Mother Earth so that we can actually reharmonize ourselves with the Schumann frequency of her heartbeat. Because when we are able to resonate with the Earth Mother, who has the beat of the heart of Earth constantly going underneath of us, and we reattune ourselves to that, oh my, we become a child of the cosmos. When you're standing in the darkness, surrender to the sweetness of life. You are worth it, my friend. You have got the love behind you. I know that I sometimes don't sing on key, but at least I try. And that is what I'm asking you to do too. So I say as we wrap up, please have compassion for yourself. Know that I send you my love. and so much else. You're a starseed and I'm reminding you that your God Saint Germain behind you too, and Jesus too. Why was he the one we remember the most? Because he embodied a higher vibe, and because he is in between the I am that I am, above the Christ consciousness that is now coming down to life through the corona. It's the gaseous aura around a sun who remembers who and whose he is, and then wears the crown of light around himself because he knows how amazing he's, and not at expense of anyone else. It's true, the conceit and confidence are different things, and so when I say I am great, it does not mean you are not to be, 'cause all I say to you is when we own what we are and what we enjoy and are good at, then we give others permission to do the same, and it has been an hour and a half, and so I say to you that today I will get going, and Jesus will come back to share a story. I'll be asking Michael Seegers to do that very soon for the next episode of our show, and then he's got a lot going on, and if you missed it, Saturday nights at 7 is the beginner's show. Over on YouTube, the Shambhala Temple of Light, you can get it on Mixler. You can get it through the ShambhalaTempleofLight.com website. I tuned in and streamed it live, and yet I was so tired. I was not the best guide, and yet I tried, so I'm trying. I hope that you will too, and then sometimes I sing because that is the end, and then I say to you, I can carry on and often do, but not today. Namaste. Toodaloo. Today I'll go and say I hope that you enjoyed yourself and learned a few things that you can use. And now I will go and say goodbye. Thank you, my friends. Have a great day and week ahead.